right, good evening, everyone. I'll call the meeting back to order to reconvene in open session. We are in closed session earlier. Welcome, everyone, to the regular meeting of the Amery Board of Education. The first item on the agenda is, are we going to start with the introduction of new staff
We don't
members?
have any new
Or-
staff to introduce
Okay.
here this evening.
All right, so
We
the,
have Gretchen was able to be here. Gretchen, where are you at? Come on over, Gretchen. Be recognized. Gretchen Wahlberg is a new hire in the elementary school office, and it's been nothing but quiet since she started in the elementary office. So welcome, not welcome to the school district. I mean, welcome to employment in the school district of Amery, I guess. So, thank you, Gretchen.
thank you.
And you are not obligated to stay. It's okay if you leave. We won't be offended.
Thank you for coming.
The next item on the agenda is the spotlight on education, the Montessori staff certifications.
Okay, Cheryl and Oralee, are you both doing that? We have two folks here.
Okay, as you are aware, the vision of the School District of Amery's strategic plan is to innovate, lead, and succeed. And our Montessori is one of the many examples of how our district has embraced this vision. Currently, at the elementary school, we have approximately 83 students in the Montessori program. And at the intermediate school, we have 16. This learning opportunity for our students is possible due to the commitment of our teachers dedicated to the Montessori philosophy, which fosters curiosity, creativity, and critical thinking skills. Tonight, Oralee and I would like to extend a special congratulations to our Montessori teachers. Heather Hahn has received the Lower Elementary Montessori Teaching Diploma from the North America Montessori Center. Heather, you can come on up. Heather worked endless hours studying the curriculum while teaching full-time to earn this diploma, giving her the certification needed to teach in the Lower Elementary Montessori program. The Lower Elementary Montessori program is a multi-age program with students in grades 1st through 3rd, ages 6 through 9. So tonight, I am going to present to her her certificate stating that she is actually official, even though she was teaching Montessori at the same time she was learning Montessori, which is quite a feat. So thank you, Heather.
And everything is ditto with that with Shane, with the exception that Shane has the upper elementary Montessori, but she taught as well when she was getting her her diploma, which I would give to her tonight. Congratulations. And we are duly thrilled to have Shane back in our building. She started many years ago as a student teacher downtown for Sue Bielmeyer, and then taught special ed in the intermediate building, and then moved to the middle school and is now back. So we love it. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda are the consent agenda items. So who had the vouchers this month?
I did, and everything was in order, so I will move to approve the consent agenda items as laid forth.
Second?
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, the consent agenda items are approved. The next matter are community comments. I saw that there were a few people signed up, so.
Lauren Sobczak is signed up. Yep.
Good evening. I'm Lauren Sobczak, a sophomore here at Amery High School, and I'm here to ask you to allow winter sports to be played while we are remote learning. I'm currently playing hockey for the Western Wisconsin Stars out of Somerset, and we are a unique team because we are an area team and not a team that comes from one school district. Because of this, approximately half my team is being allowed to play while their teams are remote learning. And we had our first practice tonight, but I was not allowed to be there since we are remote learning. I want to start by saying I realize each one of you making the decisions are focused on keeping people safe. I agree that is the most important thing we can do as a community, but I also believe we can play sports while keeping everyone safe. I've been playing hockey during the fall with every single one of my teammates following the guidelines and sanitizing. There hasn't been any outbreaks throughout that program. This winter, during the hockey season, we can take extra precautions, such as wearing masks on and off the ice, social distancing, restricting the number of spectators allowed in the arena, and only suiting the players that are there to play. We can also sanitize the locker room after each practice and game and take our equipment home every single day. Playing hockey is essential to me, but not at the cost of other people's health. If we get a season, I will take it upon myself to remind people of the precautions we are taking and that the most important thing is everyone's safety and health. Thank you for having me tonight, and I hope you take this into consideration. Thank you.
Thanks, Lauren.
Thank you.
John Bush?
I'm John Bush. I don't know if I've met all of you, but I'm a parent of two kids in the Amery system, Taylor, who's a freshman, and my son, Nick, who's a senior this year, and also part of the hockey program, and that's why I'm here. Nice job, Lauren. I think that was really well done. So I'm not just here on my own. I'm actually representing the 4 families of seniors on the hockey team. I reached out to all of them, and so the comments are kind of from all of us. Thank you for serving on the board. And obviously, I'm here to ask that the Amery hockey season be allowed to continue. My son's been pretty disappointed about the whole thing, and it's been a little bit difficult for me. I didn't realize it was this hard, but it's been a little bit difficult for me, and I just want you to understand that whatever you decide, there's consequences on both sides. He's certainly been impacted by the news. So that was it. That was really all I had to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Okay. There aren't any other community comments,
Nobody else
correct?
signed up. I
Okay.
don't know if anybody else is here to speak, but nobody else has signed up.
All right, the next item are the administrative committee and department reports, starting with the administrative reports.
Hello, everybody. As you can imagine, we've been extremely busy the last couple weeks preparing for what we figured was probably the inevitable. Lots of remote learning practice have been going on at the high school, daily, class by class, and with today being day one, I know Mr. Fern and I walked out of the building both feeling like all the hard work definitely paid off, a lot of successes throughout the buildings today. It was a quiet, lonely place at times, but we had plenty of opportunities still to connect with kids. Lots of great lessons were going on, and we've really taken the approach of the glass is half full, and not what we can't do. Let's do what we can do and make it the very best that we can do. And I know that that's going on in the other buildings as well. We're not going to dwell on what we can't, but we're really going to focus on what we can do and do well, and that's what our strategy is going to be moving forward. With that said, some things that have been going on. We recently started the second term. First term went fabulous, better than we could have imagined. So we're excited to be moving into term 2. We had a very successful in-service last week on Friday. Very beneficial time to our staffs, and we're really thankful for that. We were able to successfully complete our Veterans Day program for November 11th through virtual world. Special thanks to Tracy Hendrickson for all the special work that she put into that. With the assistance from the VFW, it turned into just a wonderful thing with all of the pictures of numerous community members who served in the military. And so just once again, a huge thank you to Tracy and as well to our veterans. Unfortunately, we did have to postpone our National Honor Society induction, and hopefully we'll be able to do that in the near future. We also had to postpone our fall practice ACT test, but we'll keep those things on the agenda, and hopefully we'll get back to them when the time is right, as well as our fall music concerts, which we've put some work and effort into, and hopefully those will be able to put on the live stream here in the upcoming months as well. So, thank you.
Hold on. I know.
Mr. Benson wanted me to remind you there's a Viking game tonight.
7:15.
Tonight, I'm actually rooting for them. So, yes, I'll get to that. Okay, I'll try to be short, but I do want to say, yes, I mean, Tracy did a great job with that Veterans Day program, and anybody else who helped her, that was awesome, and she should be, congratulated tenfold for that, since you brought it up. And I would like to ask you, you talked about, you opened the door, you talked about in-service and how you had a good day for your high school staff there, and I would like each one of our building principals to answer the same thing when you come up to the podium and talk tonight. I just want to know, what have you done in your building to help the staff through this time that's been so hard? It's been really hard on our staff. I mean, I know that parents have had a hard time, and I've heard good things come, and I think it's time that we should recognize those things, so.
Well,
Don't be shy. I want
geez,
to hear it.
I feel like I should make Mr. Melberg come up here and speak. Well, you know, I guess on a personal level, and I know these other building principals do the same thing, you know, we really try to get around and do our walks as much as possible, and just, you know, let the staff know we really are concerned, if there's anything we can do with them. A lot of little thank you cards go out, you know, little things, Caribou coffee treats. We've been doing some trivia contests at the high school with different contests that we've ended up doing a lot of fun things that have came about from that. I guess, you know, we're trying to take care of people, and I'll just kind of leave it at that, but they know that we care, and that's the most important thing.
I want to say thank you for doing that for our staff, because that's it's what good leaders do, and you're doing an amazing job there from the things that I'm hearing that's going on. So
Thank you.
I just wanted to highlight that for you tonight.
Thank you.
I want to echo a little bit of what Josh just talked about with how the day went today. I was ecstatic, to be honest with you, with how well our kids did getting online. For a little bit of idea, what the high school and middle school primarily are doing is the teachers are still teaching their classes, and the kids go on through Google Meet. I want to thank the board for supporting us as we put in microphones in all our schools and digital and video cameras that are pinpointed. It's made this process night and day difference from what we did before. The average teacher in my building has between 60 to 70 students that they see each day. And I went around I got to about 70% of them, and a lot of them said I had every single kid online today. A couple, I was missing one, I was missing two. The most I heard was 4. If you had told me that I was going to get close to 95 to 98% of my students online and participating, I would have been very happy, especially after kind of what we experienced last spring. It was tremendous, and I sat in just in awe of the teachers and the work that they did, presenting the way they did with the technology and the kids and in the interacting, and it was phenomenal. And I was really excited, and I felt probably the best I felt this year was today. And I was kind of anticipating I would feel the opposite, so that really made it feel good. And I want to thank all the parents who obviously took everything really seriously and assisted us in helping with their children learning. If we didn't have you, we wouldn't get anywhere. So it's been great to work together as a community, and I'm really proud of the work we're doing. A couple other things. We're still involved in a lot of character education, and we're going to be continuing with that even when they're off-site. We're starting our 15th year we initially started an anti-bullying program we've stretched that now into following the elementary and intermediate leads with the second step curriculum. And we're training staff, and we're researching and doing some online trainings to bridge a little bit more and to move into restorative justice practices and finding better ways to help our kids treat each other appropriately. And I'm excited about that work. We're continuing with some community service programs. We had planned to kick off our food drive, which we do each year at this time. And obviously that's not happening, but we have plans when the kids are back to continue that, and we know they will be back, we're just not sure when, and we'll continue that when we do have them. And I'm proud that the kids do a really nice job and they take that real serious. There's a lot of different community service, which I'll talk about in a little bit in the community outreach presentation I have coming up. But a lot of the outreach too is really hard right now because by this point we would have had many kid groups in with the nursing homes and music groups and things that we can't do right now. So we're continuing to try to find ways to do that, and I think it would be kind of fun to set up some Zoom sessions with them and find ways to do that. We did our Alice lockdown safety drill. We completed that early November. We have our second required Alice lockdown drill sometime in January that we're going to do. I know Mr. Gould would like us to finish it so he can complete his paperwork. And then band, I just want to mention we do have a band meeting coming up, band and music choir meeting. Obviously, those ways that we have done concerts can't happen that way, and so we're looking at ways to still showcase all the music talent that our kids do and the hard work that those teachers are doing. And a lot of the dates that parents maybe saw initially will be changed as we'll be doing a lot more digital and remote presentations when we get our kids back. So that's what I have going on. As far as what we're doing with our staff, I was really pleased with the work that they're doing. We started planning in May. We met before the teachers left, we met and planned out how we would operate if this were to come. And I also want to thank, because we had a lot of summer meetings to make sure that they felt like they were prepared and had discussions and time to have a lot of teacher input. And just about everything that we're all doing is really driven by the teachers on how they felt we could do this best. But you're right, we need to continue to take care of them and support them. Do that again in all the similar ways that Mr. Gould does. We are we have a teacher fund where we have a pop machine, and we're using some of those funds to bring in lunch on Friday for them, and just to continue to let them know that we appreciate all that they do.
Thanks, Mr. Benson.
Yep.
So the first thing I'd like to do is to thank our local VFW and Ladies Auxiliary. If you remember, they come and do a special program for our fifth graders. After they do the big show at the high school, then they've come over here. Well, this year, of course, they weren't able to do that. So the ladies delivered a bag for each one of our fifth graders, and it was personalized for them, and inside has their personalized flag, a flag lanyard, a special note about flag etiquette, and then also they found candy wrapped like a flag. So thank you so much to those ladies. The kids were just thrilled to get them. So super happy about that. Once again, I would say what Mr. Benson and Mr. Gould said. We had a fabulous day walking around and taking it all in and seeing title classes live with all 4 of the kids up on the screen in that room, and then going to a classroom and having all 20 kids on the screen. It just worked out really, really well. So thank you so much to the students, to the staff, and to the parents for being supportive and making sure that that got off in a great way this morning. As far as staff, my staff likes time to work on things. So whenever I ask them what I can give them, they tell me time. And so we have really tried to do all of our in-service time, starting way back in May and working towards right up to this last week, working on remote learning, training. What can we do to best serve the needs of our kids when and if we needed to go to today? We also like food at the intermediate school, and so we have fresh cookies and different things that have been delivered to them. Any questions?
Thanks, Ms.
Thank
Schock.
you.
Thanks to the ladies of the auxiliary too. Those are awesome little bags. Yeah, everybody's creative in this time that you can't be in places, so that's awesome.
Okay, I will second what everybody else has said about remote learning. Our staff has definitely stepped up to the plate, and it's no small feat. I think I spoke with a half a dozen teachers today that said, I couldn't sleep last night because we just wanted everything to go smoothly. And I think it went as good as it could have gone. We're using Seesaw, we're doing some live lessons, we're doing some taped lessons, we've got packets going, and they're all working so very hard. It's really important to remember that the elementary and intermediate school don't just teach one subject. They're teaching all subjects all day, and they have really risen to the occasion to do that. And like you guys, I'm very, very proud of the work they have done. Of course, if you survey, I bet most of my staff, they're going to say they'd rather be face-to-face. I received letters today from staff asking that. I believe you received letters as well. We really believe that the little people need to be face-to-face in order to do a good job teaching reading. I was reading some information today from John Hattie. My friend Jessica D'Ambrosio came in and she said, did you look at what the efficacy rate is for distance learning? And John Hattie is a professor who has done a meta-analysis on what works best for kids. Everything from small class size to teacher efficacy to distance learning. And for elementary kids and for all kids, face-to-face, as you know, is the best way to teach. And I had to just highlight a quote that he said, not to beat a dead horse here, but he said, and this is so true because I agree that parents have done an amazing job, what I can tell today. But John Hattie said, I have rarely met a parent who does not want to help their child, but some do not have the skills. Remember, we made schooling compulsory because teachers are better at teaching than parents. And I just thought, nothing against our parents because they're working so darn hard to educate their child, but this, I really believe what he is saying is true. So anyway, I'll move on from that. I wanted to let you know that our Cherry Dale fundraiser, it's a new fundraiser that we did this year after using Hanson's for many, many, many years. And we had one of our largest fundraisers with Cherry Dale, probably because they really promote online sales. We brought home $11,937, which is a record for our school. We are shooting to get $44,000 because we want to add a new fitness track on our playground, but we may be doing that in pieces and parts. But pick up for that fundraiser. So many of the families have already received their goods because they ordered them online, but the pickup for those that are not online is this Thursday, and we're doing it from 1 o'clock until 4:30 p.m. You can just pull up to the elementary school and grab your stuff. We are going to have our first Parents as Partners meeting December 3rd, and it's going to be via Zoom, and we will talk about our goals and our budget. Our elementary kiddos were all set to do a lot of kindness acts this month. The Salvation Army Red Kettle is in the lobby. We're collecting food for the food shelf, and we also have a mitten tree. So who knows, maybe we'll get back to be able to do some of that stuff. As far as recognition for my amazing staff, I tell them all the time we are the best elementary school in the nation. I do a lot of, in my emails, a lot of just positive feedback to them, and I literally tell them that I love them all the time. And I think they're so sick of me saying that, but it's so true. I couldn't be the principal that I am without the staff that I have, that I work with every single day. They are amazing. And boy, this was just perfect because today they had coffee and morning buns from Pure and Simple, and that is because the parents as partners and myself work together to get that for them. So we do what we can to recognize them, thank you notes, candy, etc. They deserve everything they get. Questions?
Thanks, Mrs. Meyer.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. The next report would be the strategic plan update.
Okay, before I say anything about that, I just forgot to mention one thing, Josh groans. You asked us what we're doing for our staff, and I also wanted to mention, Char, that last Tuesday we came into a meeting and were provided with coffee and some Caribou coffees, and then also a bag of coffee, a package that the elementary teachers had done in, as appreciation with a note to us, and I really want to make sure that they know that we appreciated that too, so that was really nice.
I just wanted you guys to highlight what you do to help your staff, because I just want you guys to get the recognition as leaders that
Sure.
you deserve as well, and you shouldn't be shy about that. And sometimes us as a board don't get a chance to point that out, so tonight was a good time to do that with everything going on. So
Sure.
you guys should all be commended for the leadership that you provide in your buildings.
Thank you. Well, I'm here to represent the Strategic Plan Committee for Community and Family Collaboration. And we had a nice group of staff that we worked with when we initially set up our plan, and I chair that committee with Tracy Hendrickson, who couldn't be here today. I can tell you, if there's one person you want to work on a committee with that deals with communication, you want Tracy, because she's our hero, and she's been excellent to work with. So you have 3 or 4 slides that represent our work this year with family and community collaboration. And the overarching goal really for this group was that the School District of Amery will advance strong two-way communication and collaboration systems to ensure that all the district stakeholders, including parents, students, staff, businesses, industries, churches, civic organizations, and local municipalities, are informed and engaged. And our first action plan step was to analyze parental outreach and communication and engagement. And I won't spend a lot of time going over every point, but the first one there is talking about a community survey. When we started the strategic plan, as we move forward, we surveyed a lot of different groups, community groups, parents, staff, students. We used the school perception survey a few years ago and talked about how the community wants to get information, the preferences for how they get their information. This survey covered a lot of things, but that was just one area. We're going to continue to analyze that data and engagement. So we're really taking a look at really how are each of our programs being used, what is the level of engagement. We can take a look at that with social media, our apps, and our websites. And we'll continue to do that, and we are working on a communications plan to kind of highlight that, which is coming up. Focus groups were held, again, where we talked with groups of people to talk about how well we're doing with communication, getting thoughts and options. I know that we're looking at doing that again with staff, I think in January, if I'm not mistaken, at our in-service. We did have various plans and different dates, and a lot of that keeps getting shoved back, and so you're going to hear me say quite a bit. We had a date that got changed because it's been hard to do a lot of this with community groups since March. And then finally, design a district communications plan. And if you look at the next slide, This is the kind of communication plan, and it's several pages that's being developed. The purpose of that communication plan is just to provide a framework for how we're going to communicate both internal and external audiences in our district. And it will cover things such as electronic communication, print communication, local media, and which media sources from radio and newspaper and social media groups, and then face-to-face communications like parent-teacher conferences and emails and all the different types of systems. And even then, like our recent parent-teacher conferences, we were kind of forced to make some adjustments and found that a lot of people liked it. And so we'll continue to say, oh, how can we do things better? Our second action plan was to build and maintain relationships with our district stakeholders. That was kind of the one that was probably the most visual when we started it out with our Like a Warrior campaign. And that's continually an ongoing process. I think it was really popular at first. We have additional banners that are going up. We have several businesses, if you go into like Dick's Market at times or Chet Johnson's, they're wearing the Like a Warrior Amery gear on Fridays just like the staff are. And Tracy says she still is getting calls, but we don't have any real specific changes, but I think as we go forward, it's still something that we want to refresh and continue to improve upon. Community involvement fair, we've held some community involvement fairs from youth rec groups. Even for adults, we had an all-club picnic, and I'll come back to that. I think the last one was approximately 8 months ago, where we bring in all the different youth organizations and have a big sign-up night and let them all kind of PR what they do. Increased communication with the Amery Ministerium, increased work with the community club are things that we were involved in. We've had reps at all those organizations. Most of the admin team has been on the board and been president of the community club at one point. And again, a lot of times those organizations haven't been meeting face-to-face for quite some time now. Conduct staff tours of local businesses and industries. I think that's a really important one to get out. And we did that many years ago. We brought all of our staff to about 4 or 5 different local industries. And we have student groups that continue to go out or have in the past, both at the middle school and high school for sure. I know the high school did it, I believe, last year or recently with as a part of their academic career plan, so that our teachers in our community understands what do these businesses do. And that's been a real valuable piece to try and build a relationship with them. Expand the high school community service day to be a district-wide community service day. And that one, I think we've spoken to this before, it was a good idea at the time. We decided that trying to send out kindergartners all the way up to seniors to certain sites that would be more of taking care of everything. And we said, well, they're doing some great things. We're all doing community service. We just do it at different times. And like I said, whether it's food drives or raking lawns or doing service on fences in the community or the parks, visiting the senior centers, mitten drives, it's happening all over the place. And that's important for our kids. And then finally, the third action plan was to partner with local businesses and industries to positive impact our local economy. The first one was really dealing with youth apprenticeships, and we're really pleased with the youth apprenticeship programs that we do offer. We have students involved in all kinds of local businesses, from banks to marketing to industry. And we're a leader in that, to be honest with you, in Western Wisconsin. And the last I had heard is that if you took a look at all the different youth apprenticeships that are being done in our local area, at least our conference, we have more at Amery than all the other schools do combined. It's been an amazing program for us. Can set up a community advocate committee. Again, we started an all-club picnic. The purpose was to bring all the different organizations together. That was led by, I believe, Cheryl Meyer was president of the community club at the time and spearheaded that effort. And it was kind of neat to bring all the different organizations. Cheryl, how many do you think we had? Probably 20? Probably about 20 of the local organizations, and they all kind of came and were able to promote what they do. Design Amery was a project that a lot of us were involved in, and that was really taking a look at how we're going to package and market Amery in the future, the design for where we're going, and that got put on hold with COVID. But there's a lot of those types of things going on, and when they are, the school's really, really heavily involved. Continue building a promotional flyer. We started a district achievement flyer, and it talks not just about academic achievement, but other types of things. What are we doing in promoting our ag programs and our house building programs and the Montessori types of programs and AIM and project-based learning, and what does Amery do outside of just test scores? And I think that flyer's been a pretty good piece, and I think we sometimes forget there are so many really awesome things that Amery's doing for the size of our district, and we need to promote that, and that flyer's helped us with that. And then finally, the CTE Academy, work with moving forward with Warrior Manufacturing was kind of the term we started up with, and you look at the work at the Construction Academy with Mr. Ganji. Just last month, we had Derek Meyer in here talking about our award-winning egg program and the work that he would like to do and has done. Our business ed right now just is kicking off an online school store in cooperation with Sports and More with Mrs. Lockwood. And our FACE program right now is processing and selling coffee with Mrs. Larson and has done catering in the past. So there's a lot of really cool things that they're doing right here at school to learn and to work with our local business and industries. So that's a little bit about what our committee has been doing and continues to do. And I think as we move forward, as we get our new communication plan done, it will help us. The last thing I just wanted to mention was what we're doing to communicate with families right now. And at first I thought I would share it with you so you would see it, but if you go onto the district website and hit on the upper left, you'll see Stay in School Plan for the community too. If you hit the Stay in School Plan, that leads you to a web page that shares our matrix. It shares current numbers, what's going on in the county, and what's going on in our school as far as COVID numbers, plans and methods that we use to make determinations of what direction we're going to go. And then on the bottom right then on that page, there's a local distance learning hub. And if you click on that page, you're going to come to a page that has all of our buildings on it and links to all the different learning plans, calendars, schedules that we're using, links to get into various hubs for access to pieces, like a homework hotline, what's being assigned distantly right now. And I think it's a nice resource all in one place. So I want to thank both Becky and Tracy, I'm sure, for helping move that forward, and all the teachers and principals that have contributed to make sure that our parents are aware of what we're doing. And of course, I know that we've all sent that out to the parents, but we tend to send out the link that heads to our building, one less click for everybody. But if you go there, it's all in one place, and it's pretty easy to follow. So I just want to encourage parents to do that and reach out if you have questions.
Thank you.
Any questions for me?
No, what a statement that says about our community businesses to partner with the school and give our kids a chance to see what it's like in the industry and help them decide what they want to do with their future. That's a major feat by these businesses, and I think just shows how our businesses, our local businesses, really support the school district.
Very much so. The whole community does, and we're very excited about that. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. All right, the last item for the administrative department reports, the building and grounds update.
Okay. George and Tom are going to assist with this with me. You can follow along on the screen. The first of the slides that you see is the original slide way back to April of 2017. This is the operational referendum slide. The pie chart was the promise that we made to our community, and we have made good on that promise. Each and every year, we have devoted of that 1.9,700,000 to projects that fall in the area of building and grounds, in essence. So the second slide that you see is the 2020-2021 version of what we did. All of these things were voted on, approved by you in April of last year, and they are all complete. The carpeted hallways at the middle school, vinyl tiling at the high school, tennis courts, PAs and clocks throughout the district, and auditorium lighting, that's all been complete. And those have all been something that's very positive for the district and well overdue in some cases. Now, there's no action that you need to take here this evening. The next two slides are going to be proposals for next year and the year after. Again, proposals meaning it's subject to change based on need in the district. Because anything could happen at any point in time, we just don't know. And if 2020 has taught us anything, it would be just that. You just don't know. So, in 21-22, the proposal is to redo the gym floor. It is original to the high school. It is 44 years old. By the time we got to 21-22, it would be 45 years old. It has been surfaced and surfaced and resurfaced and resurfaced and resurfaced. It is in need of being addressed in a formal, final way. So that's an item we have for you. 2 small vans in the district. We use our vans every day, throughout the day, to transport students. So that would be a proposal. Entryway doors on all buildings. And what I mean by that is swapping out the doors, the hardware on the doors. If you go to the high school, for instance, if you want to see different varieties of door, go to the high school because there's probably 7 different varieties of door in the entryway because they've been busted out. It doesn't take much to break them. If you hit them the wrong way, they just spider out and break. They're 44 years old. In some cases, 4 years old, some cases 24 years old. They've been replaced and replaced and replaced. So that would be on the list. Through wall flashing at the high school when we did our building and grounds tour way back when now, it seems like forever ago. There are spots at the high school where the through wall flashing is compromised so poorly that we're getting close to being able to see into the interior of the building from the exterior of the building. And that's not good. It's caving in. It's a building that's 44 years old, built for $3.4 million, so it's a huge problem. Flooring in classrooms at intermediate and middle. I said this the other day at team. It's no longer safe to say that this is a new building. It's almost 20 years old. So it's time for some upgrades here. And middle school is 1992. It's time for some upgrades there as well. And upgrade a phone system. This is the 3rd phase of the safety and security that you'll see in a subsequent slide here. This is the 3rd of those 3 phases. So, questions, comments, or anything you wanted to add, George, about the 21-22 proposals?
Yeah, the doors are a big thing. Mainly rust is starting to take over. And then just the heat from the summertime, you almost have to kick some of the doors open at the high school. So it's almost becoming a safety issue to be able to get out. That's the striking thing there. And then, of course, the through-wall flashing. And that's nothing that anybody did wrong over the years, my predecessor, including me. They call it basically the through-wall flashing is just a matter of when it's going to fail. It deteriorates inside the wall. And we did an extensive project at the elementary school. The middle school over the past 10 years has had some of that done. In fact, we covered a portion of it with steel. It was more cost effective than pulling out 3 courses of brick, but nobody could really see it and you can't tell. A lot of people, Baldwin did a lot of that. They just covered their buildings with steel rather than pulling out the blocks. So yeah, we definitely need to address it.
Questions on 21-22, and again, this is just informational at this point in time. You'll see it again later on.
The flooring in the classrooms.
Yes.
For the intermediate and middle, does that also include the hallway out here in the intermediate school, or was that already done?
The hallways here are mainly terrazzo, so it would be the, what do you call your little communities? Neighborhoods. The neighborhoods would be replaced. They're starting to get rough. The carpet, typically they say in a commercial application, 10 to 13 years for carpeting. So you had mentioned is 20
Yeah,
years
we're at
old.
19, I think. This is 2001, so.
Yeah, so I guarantee you, everything on this list has outlived its life expectancy.
Yeah. Does that $140,000 though include that? Like we went on our tour and we saw like those places in the hallways and things. Does that include this or no?
Yeah, actually, I'm figuring to do most of the intermediate school and the classrooms at the middle school with that 140. Of course, prices go up and down, but the average classroom, I was able to count up what really needed to be done. I'd love to say that we could get it all done for that, but we're going to get everything that really needs to be done for that amount.
And as you'll see on the next slide, if we wanted to spill it over into the next year, there's space to do that financially. Because it might not cover it. It's possible. So in 22-23, not to move on without being able to ask more questions, you can certainly go back. You'll see that there's room there, because that price takes under $700,000. So we're looking at the blacktop of the service road, the road that runs east-west and north-south. The switchgear at the high school football scoreboard is very old and has malfunctioned in the past. Gym floor sanding at the middle school and intermediate school. Skid steer, tuck pointing, which is that cosmetic piece, even at the intermediate school. Man lifts, and lastly, the baseball press box. Those are all items that are proposed for 22-23. Anything I missed there, George, or any questions that the board may have?
We have a skid steer today, don't we?
Do we have a
skid steer today?
It's pretty old, 92 model.
Okay. So would this be to
Just to replace.
trade off or replace? Okay.
Well, that's the way it still has some value in our old history that we did with it.
Yep.
Can you tell me what switchgear is? Sorry.
Skid steer, that's...
Switchgear.
Oh, switchgear. Switchgear is anything, it's the bigger equipment like the motor starters that start all the motors down in the shop. It's the panel boxes, breaker boxes, the main distribution center down in the generator room. We actually had a fire at the high school, and it started in one of the disconnects down there. What we've got is what they call Federal Pacific, and it's a breaker that's known to fail. And it actually was recommended years ago. If Keith was here, he was kind of an advocate for it. It's recommended that we replace it because we could have a fire. There's not a lot that can burn in a school building, but the problem is that they're not able to maintain the load that is put on them. And if they are, they typically weld right into the bus bars. So it's not something I'm excited about. If somebody offered me a brand new panel box at my house, I wouldn't even get excited to have it put in. It's something that the door is closed on for the most time, and but it is something that we'd have to do. And at that time, they would change out some of the wire that's, or some of the circuits that would be, are overloaded. You would think back then on a big building like that, typically you always wire for expansion. And back in the day, literally they wired for what was there. So if there was 40 amps on a panel box, they put a 40 amp breaker box in. It's kind of crazy. So part of that switchgear number will be updating it to handle the load that we have there.
Other questions on 22-23?
The tuck pointing, that block and brick repair, the through wall is district-wide on here. We looked at some stuff at the high school that you pointed out that I think falls into that. Can we wait at the high school on some of that until 22-23, or does that?
The year before has some in. This year has some more in it. It would be tough to get it all done in 1 year. You can see what they did at the elementary school for those short 2.5 months. There was a 7-foot trench all the way around that building. So we would only be able to get so much done in one summer anyway.
Okay.
The second part, I believe, is one of those years, this building needs some attention too, especially in the front. Some of the columns are breaking up.
Yeah.
The mortar joints are starting to come loose. There's a few areas where the lintels on the windows are starting to take on water. The ephes, that stucco board that's on here, all of that caulking now is starting to shrink and starting to take on a little water, so that would all be done at the same time. Yeah.
The
The
intermediate
city
would be
money will
the,
have to fix the bus garage too. That's
the intermediate would be the focus in the 22-23 school year.
Yeah.
The next slide is the safety and security phases. Phase 1 and Phase 2 are complete, totally, fully and complete. Phase 3 is what we're talking about, the entryway doors, and that would be set again to be completed after July 1, 21 in the summer before any of the kids arrived. So the specifics there, the board did do a short-term borrow on that. We applied for 2 grants through the Department of Justice, paid back approximately 160, well, it's actually 164, 205 exactly, and then the rest we financed. We're about 2/3 of the way through paying that off, and that would be dropping off here in the next couple of years. So that is the safety and security phases, and the rest is, and we're not going to spend a lot of time on this unless, of course, you have questions. There are a lot of stuff here that's beyond the budget. The beyond the budget high school page, I can't say specifically, but I'd say it's a very safe estimate to say everything on this page would be about $10 to $15 million. We don't have $10 to $15 million to spend on one building when our entire budget's $22 million. That's not going to work. So if we're going to address this, it's not going to be in the budget. It's not going to be right now, but it's got to be something on the board's radar and on the community's radar, because it can't go unaddressed, because eventually we're going to have a compromised high school that cannot be inhabited, because it's 44 years old and built for $3.4 million. So some of this stuff you knew about better than others, but all of it you saw when we toured. The middle school, there's stuff that's beyond the budget there as well, and none of this is small ticket. When you're talking about roofs, that's a big ticket. So that's middle school stuff that's beyond the budget. Intermediate school, the list is a little shorter. It is not new, but newer than the other buildings. The elementary is the oldest of the buildings in the district. There are some issues there, though the elementary was built a little fortress-like, and it's done very well for the length of its life. And we did do an upgrade there a couple of years ago, so that was helpful, but there are still issues that need to be addressed. And I don't want to fail to mention, Clubhouse is part of this picture at the elementary. We still have kids that are receiving care before school, after school, and during the day, and there is not an open nook or cranny at the elementary school for any other kid, for any other class, for any other teacher. We need to have an addition to the elementary in order to be able to open up more space. If we want programmatic options like project-based learning and Montessori, we need more space to be able to do it. And that's a promise this district has made to our families, that we're going to have those programmatic options. So we're going to have to increase our space in the future. And then the grounds beyond the budget, there are all sorts of things there that are not building specific, that are beyond what we're able to do in a budget, because those are all big tickets too. Questions about the beyond the budget stuff, or the other stuff for that matter? Again, just an informational item.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, George. Thanks, Tom.
Thank you. All right, on to informational items. The first item on the list, the Learning Model Transition Plan.
Okay, the Learning Model Transition Plan. You will see the metric adopted by the district this summer. You'll see there highlighted in blue the present location of remote learning in the district. We had 540 cases in the last 2-week window, which spanned from October 28th to November 10th. and we had in the district some 20 cases. So that put us in red based on those numbers. We have adopted this metric and we followed this metric each step of the way, and it dictated we be in red remote for K-12. The next window is due up, if you will, next Wednesday, the 25th, Wednesday of Thanksgiving week. We presently have, since last week Wednesday, which would have been the first day of the window, this is the 6th day of the window. We have 27 positive cases in district already. We had 13 this weekend. And in the county, we have 404. We are going to, over the course of 3 weeks' time, increase our county cases and increase our district cases by over 500%. We'll have over 1,000 cases in the county if the math continues the way it's going. That's not unlike any other county around us, or frankly, the Midwest or the nation. We have a tremendous spike happening right now, which gives us pause about how we educate our kids, and frankly, the next item on the agenda, how we play our sports. So that's why we're here to talk. So that's where we presently stand in our metric. And I'm not sure if there's any questions or comments that anyone wanted to make about where we presently stand.
So we've had 27 cases in the district since last Wednesday.
Since Wednesday, yes.
So
that
we've
is,
already crossed the threshold.
we did.
So, I mean,
We would, by the definition of those statistics, we would be in remote learning on the 25th, which would span us then into the 9th of December to make a determination for the 14th of December based on the dates at the bottom left on the page. So yes, 27 will put us there. And that's again on day 6. My hunch is we're probably going to be upwards of 50. And in the county, upwards of 1,000 or more. Based on my math, and I'm not a mathematician, I came up with 952. 3-4 weeks ago, we were talking about 100 in every window. So we're 10, 15 times that potentially. So things have gotten bad.
I think, we heard from our admins tonight, and Mrs. Meyer, for sure, you talked about being in school, and I think echoing her teachers' sentiments there at the school of having our little kids, our little people in school face-to-face. And Mrs. Meyer made a reference about parents teaching kids, and I think I wanted to touch a little bit on what she said, and not to take away from our parents that can't teach kids, because being a parent itself is a full-time job. And many of these parents are still working another full-time job outside of being a parent, and then having to put education on them is another full-time job, hence why we have full-time paid teachers. We know that being face-to-face and having our kids here is the best thing, and I think that's why we all made that decision to come back to school and to open school in the fall and try it. We hear the concerns of the teachers. I think as a board, we feel the weight of kids' education, our first business, really on our shoulders. And I hear our teachers' concerns that they want to come back, and we want our kids back too, but looking at what's going on here, I don't feel that as a board, we can make that choice to have littles in school right now, but coming back in a few weeks and talking about it again is an option.
So here would be my thoughts about it. It would be a difficult proposition to say to our parents, our teachers, and our kids that, okay, on the 11th, we had, 500 plus cases and 20 in the district, so therefore we're going remote. And then the very first day we're in remote to say, okay, we're going to change this matrix again so we cannot be in remote. I don't think that's what we want to do. We have a 500% increase, and that should be cause for alarm and pause. But what I think would be a good idea is to not wait all the way to our next board meeting, which is December 21st, but rather to meet the week of November 30th, which is the week right after Thanksgiving, and have the conversation about where we stand at that point. If we want to change our matrix, I don't think we should change our numbers. I don't think we should change our colors. I think what we would consider doing is leaving green as face-to-face, leaving red as remote, and looking at yellow. And what I mean by looking at yellow is creating a system where we would bring back pre-K or 4K, 5 I should say, and having the middle school and high school do a hybrid, where some of them are here Monday, Tuesday, some of them are here Thursday, Friday, in your remote teaching. But I don't feel comfortable in doing that today. I don't think that's the safest course of action. But to make that change, potentially after Thanksgiving break, if not after Thanksgiving break, after Christmas break, I think would be far more prudent than doing it right now. I think we should get through this week and get through Monday and Tuesday, regroup, hopefully things settle down and we'll be in a better spot then than we are now. And if we're not, we're not. But we got to be careful. We are talking about life and death here. Now, on top of that, I want everyone to understand it isn't just positives. We have every single day on our sub list at least 8 or 10, if not more, teachers in quarantine. We have in district right now hundreds of kids in quarantine. And that is not a point that should be lost on anyone. We can barely piece together our days on certain days. And there are kids that can't be here for their instruction because of COVID. We can't lose that point. And lastly, don't lose sight that this is life and death we're talking about. People are dying and people are very sick. People related to individuals in this room are dying and are very sick. And we do not want that on our conscience with one of our staff members or one of our kids or one of our kids' family members as a result of a kid getting a positive. We've got to be careful. So, other comments that folks wanted to make, this would be the time.
Well, I would agree. I mean, looking at what's happened the last, 1 to 2 weeks, I think we need to take a look at the next reading, which would be, next Wednesday? We'll have the next
Yes, sir.
results. And then I think maybe get together and have another discussion that first week of December, or first week right after Thanksgiving break.
Our goal has been all along to get everybody in green. We did that all summer long, all the way to September 1st. Our goal now is to get everybody back to green, but to do it as safe as possible. And on top of that, our goal is to always be strong communicators with our public, and I mean our parents, our community members, and our staff and our district leadership team. Because yes, this matters to the community, because if their kids are home, they likely can't go to work, and they likely are short-staffed at their work. This matters to everybody, so believe me, it's not a point lost on anyone. We want all of our kids here, because this is the place that they need to be, and we need them here. But we got to make sure we're safe to do that.
Yeah, I think it's wonderful that we were able to be in green and stay in school until, Friday the 13th. Yeah, it's tough, and to hear that we're already at 27 in this window is, discouraging, just because it doesn't even really give us a shot for November 30th at this point. And so I don't know. I kind of just don't know what to say, because I want kids to be here and teachers to be here. But again, it totally impacts all of our families and parents and everyone to try to find childcare, to try to figure that out when they're still working. But maybe a couple weeks off will bring numbers back down, we can hope.
Even if the numbers don't come down, we still have that conversation about what's best for kids. I don't disagree with any single elementary and intermediate school staff person in saying face-to-face is best. I have 3 elementary school kids. If you think for 1 second I'm as good of a teacher, or my wife is, as they are, that is not the case. Because believe me, I am not nearly as cool as any of their teachers are. Just ask them. And mom's better than dad. That's also a consensus at home.
Well, it's definitely here.
We will work together, schedule a meeting, and we'll have that conversation right here in front of the public's eyes, and they could chime in if they have thoughts about it. We encourage you to do so, and we'll do that right after Thanksgiving, and I'm hopeful we're in a better spot, but also realistic to think we might not be.
Yeah, the holidays I think are going to be tough. It's hard to tell people not to gather with their family for the holidays, for Thanksgiving, for Christmas. It's hard to tell people not to go to funerals. It's hard to tell people to put your lives on hold. So we know that those things don't happen. And that's everybody's choice. But for us, we have to look at the safest way that we can be here in this building and have kids in this building and to keep our staff safe. And it's commendable. I mean, my heart really is full to the commitment and conviction that our staff has to providing high-quality education for our kids. We just have to do it safely.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Are there any any other comments or questions on the learning model transition plan? Okay, then we will move on to winter athletics update.
Mr. Fern is here. I promised you last month you would see more of Mr. Fern. And doesn't everybody want that in life?
Yes,
Every
yes,
month.
we do.
I was hoping it wasn't going to be this often.
Someday soon, we won't need as much of you, we hope. So let's talk winter athletics. We said, who knows what'll happen in a couple of weeks? A lot could happen. Well, a lot has happened. Our numbers have gone even further north than we wanted them to, and a lot of conversations happen between ADs, between principals, between district administrators, between boards. There's a lot to talk about. So Jeff's going to walk us through some of those details. Go ahead, Jeff.
Every district is struggling with this topic right now. People are very passionate about, like we are, getting kids back face to face. We're very passionate about our extracurricular activities. I work a lot with folks who are very passionate with our high school athletics and our middle school, but you know, at the high school level, you don't gray shirt, you don't red shirt, you get 4 years. So kids are very passionate. Last month we agreed our current resolution. For face-to-face, we're participating in athletics. We did that all fall. We made some great memories, had a lot of success. If you would have asked me in August if we would have been able to pull that off, I would have said absolutely not. I mean, let's try to move forward as safe as we can, but I didn't think it would last that long. Then we have the hybrid we agreed on. If we're in a hybrid model, we can participate in athletics. To be completely honest with you, in October, I would have thought by now we probably would have been in a hybrid model, not green to red. But here we are, and we agreed as a board, and I came and presented and agreed also that if we go remote, it's not safe to bring kids to school. It's not safe enough to play athletics. I'm simply here to have another conversation to make sure that we're all on the same page with that and bring some discussion points. As you heard earlier, our winter sports season kicked off for a few programs today. Girls hockey, boys hockey, and girls basketball were all scheduled to participate today. In our current model, we're remote, so those are suspended through November 30th. It's looking like it might be longer than that, but it sounds like we're going to have some discussions on some of these topics as we get closer to that date. Boys basketball starts on November 23rd and wrestling on November 23rd. These seasons have already been cut short as the WIA made some adjustments with those who weren't able to participate in fall athletics. They moved them to the spring. For an example, hockey playoffs begin on January 25th. So that's just a FYI on how those schedules have been adjusted. Our middle school offerings, we were able to complete a couple basketball games. Kids were masked up. Like I said, we completed 2 games. Middle school wrestling's going to look different this year. I know wrestling in general is a hot topic, but that was scheduled to begin on the 23rd. And then our middle school girls basketball would begin on January 4th. All right, moving forward. I created this PowerPoint on Wednesday, and it seems like a long time ago. Things are heating up, feels like they're on fire at times. It's concerning. So On November 11th, we have Baldwin, Somerset, River Falls, Hudson, Unity, St. Croix Central, St. Croix Falls, Cameron, and Menominee were schools that I was informed that if they move to a remote learning model, they will continue with athletics. I know schools like New Richmond, they are suspended. Prescott and Ellsworth are potentially moving forward. However, they have some board meetings this week. And as you see the data, they may make different decisions also. These schools that I had mentioned on here that will participate in athletics, that could change any day, to be completely honest. Menominee was going to give their school a go-ahead. They could start practicing for 2 weeks, and then they were going to reevaluate in terms of being able to compete. So just a little background, and I don't know if principals, Mr. Durfler, if you have any updated information on area schools.
No, that conversation is ongoing. My most recent conversation was the Zoom meeting with the CISA 11 district administrators. That's the 40 schools that make up Northwest Wisconsin. And the 2 schools in remote that were not playing athletics were New Richmond and Amery, though not everyone answered the question, if you will. But we are in the minority. That is true.
Yep. Currently in the minority. That
Correct.
could change.
I don't know what's going to happen in the days to come.
I'm going to talk about a positive case because we have had one. I'm not saying it was because of athletics, but it impacted athletics. We canceled our football game. There's a lot of variables to consider when we do contact tracing. For example, out on our practice football field, we're not recording our practices. How do you contact trace? Who was within 15 feet or within 6 feet for more than 15 minutes? Who touched the ball carrier? We just decided at that point, working with coach, that we were going to quarantine the entire team. And that's fairly typical with a football situation. We had a girls basketball skills and drills contact days. It was more individual skill work. It wasn't 5-on-5. We treated that a little differently because we did have footage in the building with cameras. We had a hockey situation. Coach was able to go back and contact trace. Again, there was footage and film that we could look at. So that if there is a positive case, sometimes it's the whole team's going to quarantine for 2 weeks. And sometimes if we have film and it was somebody who was maybe sitting on the bench and didn't get in the game, that may look different. But it's a very complicated process and it's unique. And it's something that we typically get numerous stakeholders in the room to kind of break it down and make those decisions. But just to FYI, with how we go about a positive case. Items to discuss. Middle school athletics versus high school athletics, and I bring that up. I was thinking about that on Wednesday, and as the numbers have increased, what's considered essential? If we're going to make decisions, would we consider middle school to be essential? I think it is in those kids' mind. It is essential, and they need play and they need to expend some energy. And then you can look at it from a high school senior standpoint. And it's probably a little bit different situation, how we would deem something as essential and not essential, middle school versus high school. The seasons have already been shortened, like I mentioned. We do have safety protocols in place. I'm not going to go through those, but people are taking those more serious now, I think, than ever with what's going on, even not related to athletics. We know the importance of athletics. We know it keeps kids engaged in school. We know that they learn a lot of life lessons, and a lot of these experiences are things that they'll remember for the rest of their life. I know for myself, from a discipline standpoint, that I can always hold that over their head to keep them engaged and logging into their classrooms and attendance and those type of things. And I do worry about some of those kids if they don't have that motivation. English is very important, math is very important, but for some of those kids, what keeps them completing that work is what they do after school, believe it or not. Balancing the physical health risk, like Mr. Durfler said, we're talking about life and death here, literally, and also mental health for these young kids. I'm not going to say young kids have not been impacted seriously by COVID-19, because there absolutely has been cases. But some of these kids are really struggling with their mental health. I think we had a parent allude to that a little bit earlier. Positive cases related to athletics. I'm not seeing a lot of situations where we had one situation where you could maybe contact trace where there was maybe spread related, but there was a couple other isolated situations where the individual had COVID. It was not spread at a practice or through a competition. What will kids do if we don't allow structured activities? Do we trust that they're going to stay home and quarantine like we're recommending? I think we all should, consider that at this point. I think some families will do a better job than others. It's just how it is. But some of these kids really can benefit from some structured activities like we may be able to present. I'm going to go over some options. We could continue with our current athletic resolution and say no athletics during remote, no practices, no games will be suspended. And the way it's looking right now, we would be suspended, looks like indefinitely with the data that we have and the current model we're going off of. We could allow teams to practice only. The other model would be allow teams to practice and compete. To be completely honest, from the athletic side of things in the athletic department, I would advocate if we were to move forward with some type of athletics to do practices where we had small pods of kids coming in. Example would be girls basketball. It would only be 12 to 14 kids in the gym at once. I think there's 35 kids signed up for boys basketball. We would use multiple different gyms, break those kids down, and have smaller pods. They would come practice with the same kids each day. It would be skills and drills. It would not be scrimmaging. Just things to, as I was brainstorming with my coaches, some things that they brought up there that they would be interested in doing. They totally understand that, we're not going to be allowed to compete against other communities right now, but if we could bring some small group of kids in to provide some opportunities for these kids. I'm not asking our coaches to spend 3 hours here. It would be groups would come in for 45 minutes to an hour, and then another group would come in for 45 minutes to an hour, like they normally would have a 2-hour practice. It's just something I think, our coaches and our athletes deserve, that we just have a small discussion tonight to talk about what your thoughts are. If you guys have questions, you may think I'm coming from right field on this, but on behalf of the athletic department, I'm here to advocate for all those involved.
So you mentioned on the slide here, as of last Wednesday, looks like 3 middle board schools are planning to participate, right?
For sure, Somerset, St. Croix Central, Baldwin, Woodville, and Richmond is currently suspended. I believe they have a board meeting tonight. Ellsworth and Prescott, they said, yes, we're planning on moving forward with athletics. However, we have they both have important meetings this week, so
Okay.
It wasn't fair to.
And how, Osceola would be obviously close to us.
Yes,
Do we know what
they are moving forward as of November 11th with athletics, and they were doing middle school and high school.
Okay.
So are these the options we can think about when we meet again in 2 weeks? It kind of
You
ties
can-
to the learning model transition?
Yep, you can meet and talk about them now. You could meet and talk about them when we have that other conversation about the learning transition plan, which may seem logical to you. You have the discretion to proceed however you want on this. The floor is yours, so to speak, in that regard.
Again, it's such a tough situation. I mean, obviously, we've got cases like crazy in the district and in the county. But I know that athletics is very important to a lot of our families and kids. And, I heard from someone that it's not allowing school sports to continue might bring up more disparities because families that have money and are more maybe committed are going to go elsewhere. They're going to go to club things and they're going to still play basketball. They're still going to wrestle. They're still going to do some of these different things. So, so that, I guess, is something I'm taking into consideration when I'm thinking about sports. And for me, saying that you have, we have 2 weeks of in the red and you're going to miss 2 weeks of stuff is one thing, but to say you're not going to get a season because of, the numbers and stuff, is really hard. I have a really hard time telling people that they're not going to get to play at all. So, and I understand the numbers are high, but I also, like you said, you're talking about a smaller group of people. You're not talking about, hundreds of kids in the building at the time. You're talking about a smaller group of kids, and it's the same kids coming. But of course, quarantine can take the whole team out anyway,
Right.
very quickly, as we saw with the football team. So it's a very tough thing to decide. And I think, if we wait, already we've said that they're missing practice this week and next week. And if we wait until the following week, when would practices start? You're kind of just pushing it out further and further. I really don't know what to say, but I also think, I don't think numbers are going to get any better. We already know our district numbers, for this next section are already past this last 2-week window. So,
But this is an informational item. I think it's just for discussion, so that's why we can actually put it as an action item when we meet in 2 weeks.
can we not take action on it?
I don't believe we can.
You can if you want to.
Oh.
You can if you want to. You can take action on that. I guess my statement would be, I think that's a really difficult message to say to parents, that your kids are not coming to school, but we're practicing after school. That's a tough message. And I think if you're set to play sports, we are set to bring our kids back to school. And I don't think we're set to bring our kids back to school. Not without a more fulsome discussion about that and action taken after Thanksgiving break. I think in the midst of a 500% increase in the county and in the district, I think that would be an unwise move. And I understand people want us to play sports. And I understand people want to be in school. I want those things too. But I want to do it safely. And I don't have any assurances that we can do athletics safely. In 2 weeks' time, we have had 3 teams that have had a positive case on them. And when those kids go into quarantine, they don't just miss athletic competition. They're quarantined from school as well. And I know we're in remote, but if we're in a hybrid or in-person, they would miss school. They wouldn't be able to be here. So if we're going to have sports and cancel school, I would never be in favor of that. My recommendation would be that we wait until after Thanksgiving, and if you're going to take that action, you take it at that time. That would be my recommendation.
So I think we talked about this at the last board meeting. We passed that resolution. We had some discussion about it. We've heard from people here tonight. We've had emails. I sat down with some emails that we had, and I wanted to address those concerns tonight to say we don't just base our opinions here as a board from our own point of view. We are elected officials that we try to put ourselves into the shoes of our parents and what the majority of the people want, and to be the vote for the majority, but also be the voice for the minority. And I think in this case, we get it. We understand. We think that sports have a lot to offer for our children. But our first order of business as a school is to provide education. And if we can't provide education for our kids, and I have to look at our elementary teachers and our littles and tell them that they can't come here and learn how to read and write and do math, and now I'm going to put that on a parent and say you have to, but you can bring your kids to school and play sports. These are extracurricular activities for a reason. They're extracurricular. I've had kids, I know these seniors, I get it. I had a son last year blow out his knee on a junk play on a football field, and it was the first game of the senior season. It took away his senior season. It was hard on him. I get it. Anytime a kid steps out on the court, the field, the mat, one injury can take away your senior season. I'm sorry that this year it could be COVID. It sucks. My daughter was supposed to go to Scotland, that she earned her way to a worldwide global competition. She couldn't go to Scotland. It's heartbreaking to see your kids go through these things. It's also heartbreaking to watch your kid in a hospital or at home sick, or watch a family member at home sick. It's heartbreaking to tell your kids you can't come to school every day because we made choices that we could have prevented. We're not here to destroy kids' hopes and dreams or parents' hopes and dreams. That's not what our goal here is when we pass this resolution. It's heartbreaking. These decisions are not easy. These decisions that we have to tell people this, it sucks. As a board member, there's nights I don't sleep. I'm up literally sick to my stomach trying to figure out how do we do all of this. I know our staff is. I know our admin teams are. I know the amount of work that everybody has had to put in to keep this building open as long as we have. It's hard. I know this virus, people say it's scary and you're making decisions based on fear, but these aren't decisions based on fear. These are decisions that are based on what's going on in our community right now. This isn't what was going on in Milwaukee and Madison and New York in March. We're looking at it here now. Our hospitals are full. People are at home sick. Family members are dying. How can I look at those people and say, we're going to make decisions to play sports? Can families do what they want to outside of this? Can they go play club sports? Can they go do this? Yes, absolutely. You know, if anybody that knows me knows I'm all about the free will of anybody doing whatever you want. But in this seat here, we have to do what's right for the district in education and not what goes on outside these four walls. These are the only things that we can control. It's our job to know that we have done what we can. Nobody knows for certain that you're not going to get these outbreaks in a particular sport. Even with all the protective gear, even with all of the things that we try to do, it doesn't always work because kids just don't go to the court or a hockey rink or a wrestling mat. They're also out working and socializing. And a lot of times they're not doing that with masks on. They're not social distancing. And now all of a sudden they're coming into the courts, the rinks, and they're bringing all of that contact that they've had with them. And we've seen it happen. That's how kids get quarantined in school. Unless you live your life in that bubble and you want to give up going to work yourself or doing anything else, I don't know how we can say that we can guarantee that kids aren't going to spread. We do have to live with the decisions that we make every day, all of us, and it goes both ways. You may say that you take on a risk for your particular family because you know the risk that you take, but once you do that and you're not putting yourself in a bubble, you're making also decisions for other people. You're not only making that decision and that risk and taking on that risk for yourself. I'm sorry, it's hard. I think that this one season does not define a high school career. I know people say, my kids are going to be seniors and they want to be a leader and they want to show their underclassmen what it's like to hold your head high in times of adversity. I think this is the time that those kids can be the leaders. And it's adversity. And to show the underclassmen that my senior season might suck and we might not get to play, but this is what leaders do and we'll get through it. And I think that's the whole reason that we have sports, and to build those confidences. And if we've done that for these kids who have played their whole career, sometimes from 4 years old on up, I think that the sports has instilled that in them. and it's time to hold their head high and say, we're going to get through it.
Any other thoughts about winter sports?
Oh,
Not during this portion of the meeting, no, sorry. No, there isn't a community comments portion during the meeting or after the meeting, just at the beginning. You certainly can, absolutely. Go ahead, Chelsea.
Oh, I just think it does kind of go hand in hand with the learning model transition plan, and we've revisited that a couple times, and we're going to revisit that in a couple weeks, and I think that it's probably a little premature to take any action on this, especially since it wasn't an action item, even though we could, and put it on the agenda for the week of November 30th.
How about this as a proposal for you, the board, for the public, for the staff, for the kids who are playing sports and going to school, the coaches, everybody? How about this? Let's meet the week of the 30th of November. Let's come up with a plan to hopefully get all of our kids back in school. Fallback position being our 4K through 5th grade back in school. And I don't mean February, I mean December. And then after we have a plan and execute that, the next conversation in that very same meeting is the plan to execute to get our kids back on the rink, the mat, and the court. And I don't mean February, I mean December. Can that happen? I make no promises. But can we have that conversation and create that plan? Believe me, since March, we've made plans for things that I can't even imagine that we've ever made plans for. Can we make it happen smartly, safely? I am hopeful that we can put our heads together to do that. That would be my promise to everyone here and everyone that cares enough to have that conversation with us. We appreciate your feedback. I will take that feedback. The board will take that feedback. You can provide feedback on that evening. We're not here making these decisions in isolation. We're going to make them right in the light of day, because this is, after all, kids' lives that we're talking about in regards to their education and their sports. So that's my promise to all of you. Does that seem like an acceptable course of action?
Yeah,
Get a date on the calendar.
Yeah, I'm more than for trying to revisit this in a couple of weeks and see what we can do. I mean, nobody wants to cancel everything without knowing where things are going to go. It's not decisions that are taken lightly, and it's things that need to be revisited. So I'd be more than happy to come back.
We will set that date this evening right after the meeting, and it'll be on the calendar, and it'll be right here in this location for folks to hear and see and know what's going on.
Does that mean, though, that we need to do some work before that meeting?
Yes,
as
we-
far as,
yes,
know?
I think we do, and what we need to do is, I think, twofold. We need to find out what folks are doing in regards to their instructional plans with 4K through 5, and I think we need to find out what CISA schools are doing in regards to athletics. And what I mean by that is not only how are they educating them and how are they playing sports, but how are they doing it safely. I will say this in addition to that. This district has never followed. This district has always led. And I'm never going to make decisions based on what everybody else is doing. I'm going to make decisions with the assistance of the other members of the district leadership team and you, and we're going to make decisions in a smart way, in a well thought out way, in a sincere way, in a very transparent way. And I believe in the end, the right decisions will be made. We just can't do it right now. It's not safe to do it right now. But perhaps we can.
So
right after Thanksgiving.
I got to advocate for the athletic program. Bringing kids in small groups and small pods, do we think that that's going to change in a week, in 2 weeks? And the reason I bring that up is because a sport like hockey needs 10 practices before they can compete. So if we started on November 30th, it's mid-December before we even start competing, and then it's January 25th is when the postseason begins. So if we could get the kids in small pods and get those 10 practices out of the way, then we have a little more flexibility. I'm not sold the numbers are going to look any different in 2 weeks. Like, I don't
believe they will, but we're also not in a position to roll out the balls, so to speak, today. We're not in that position. We don't have that ability.
They cannot, they have to be 7 face-to-face practices for boys and girls basketball, and then 10 face-to-face practice for hockey.
So we'll stick to what's required of us by the WIAA.
Correct.
We're never going to deviate from that. But we will have that conversation the week of November 30th, and we won't play winter sports until that occurs. Because the resolution entered last month was that we are in a remote model, and therefore we're not playing winter sports. If it's not safe to come to school, it's not safe to play athletics. That was the position we took then, and I don't think anything's changed now.
Dale, did you have something?
Yeah, I would just, make the comments, and I've been on this board for a long time, and I can say this is probably without a doubt one of the top 5 most challenging and difficult decisions that I've been involved with. And I truly believe that sports are a huge part of education. A lot of kids excel academically, and maybe not all athletes are great in the classroom, but maybe on the rink or on the floor or on the mat, it gives them a chance to excel. So I totally get it. I think sports are huge. Lifelong lessons are made in sports. But with that being said, and where we're at tonight, what we've seen happen in the last week, I don't think I can, in good conscience, start playing sports when we're saying the kids are at home. So I think I would like to revisit this after Thanksgiving. Hopefully we can come up with a way to make a season. We're kind of winging everything and have been since last March, trying to do the best we can, and I hope we can get some type of a season for all of our student athletes, but we have to do it safely. And those are my thoughts. I would agree that I think we should revisit it after Thanksgiving.
Does the board have any thoughts on what safely may look like? Just so we can go back and have conversation with our coaches and.
I think that's a conversation we need to have, you and I and the coaches and the other building principals involved. I think that's a more involved conversation than we have right here. But what I believe we can do is come up with an ironclad plan for how we can do it. But before that, we're going to come up with an ironclad plan for how we can get kids back in school, because that's even more important than athletics. That's, after all, what we're here to do first, above all things.
So I do know that it looks like Tim is trying to implement some safety measures for the hockey kids, correct? So is there any talk about WIAA adjusting their schedules or adjusting the rules or anything? I mean, this is statewide. This isn't just here. This is statewide.
I feel like I don't see it happening because they're trying to create an athletic calendar for the entire state. The southern part of the state probably felt like we did today, or we currently feel today, in the fall, and so some of them opted to move their fall sports to the spring, so there's a month-and-a-half gap there.
Well, the whole state's red right now, right?
What's that?
The whole state's red right now, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, this is not just here. Yes, they opted
Correct.
to move but the whole state is red.
Right.
So
But they want to give, the athletic calendar is set so that, say you didn't play volleyball or football this fall, you now have a month and a half in the spring/winter, which is, in a perfect world for us, we've already played those sports, we would like to have that time for our winter athletes.
Yep, I understand that. But is there any talk of the WIA resetting the calendar?
No, there's not at this time. But it doesn't mean that the current situation may not dictate a conversation at their level and,
I mean, because we can't guarantee that the WIA will even say that it's okay to have a season at this point, right? They may shut down a season.
I don't see them shutting down the season. I believe it's going to be local control.
Our fall sports season was adjusted, right? In terms
was.
of like who we played and when we played them, that was all kind of tweaked, right?
Yes, it was. It was essentially, for most teams, it was conference opponents only.
Yep.
The number of games was reduced.
And right now, looking at our winter season, our schedules are probably tweaked somewhat as well. Are we just playing conference games?
It really depends on the sport.
Okay.
Like wrestling is conference teams only. Basketball, there's a couple non-conference games currently scheduled. But as this thing moves forward, you may just see a conference-only schedule for all sports.
And I know typically there's the WIA has a limit on the number of games you can play in a week. Is that, what is that number of games, do you know, for
There's
hockey
not
or-
necessarily, well, for wrestling right now, they can compete, they can have one match every 6 to 7 days. So right now, a wrestler will, if they had the full season, they would get 7 matches if they didn't receive a forfeit.
Yeah.
But other sports, there are no restrictions. You just need to have 1 day off
Okay.
a week.
So hockey and basketball could potentially play 2, 3, 4 games a week.
Yeah, I don't think that is the best way to move forward with schedules. We have it currently where they're playing 2 competitions a week in case there was a breakout.
Okay.
You know, if you had multiple games and a kid tested positive, then you got to go back and,
Yeah.
you know, but yeah, we would stick to, for most sports besides wrestling, two games a week.
And we've had positive kids in each of those sports, correct, right now?
Girls basketball, we had a positive case. Boys basketball, we have not. In wrestling, we have not. But they haven't started yet either. Hockey, we did have a athlete test positive. I'm not saying it's because he was at hockey. It was-
I'm not
yeah,
asking
but yes.
that. I'm only
Yeah.
asking if we've had positive cases
Right.
in the sports
In
themselves.
football, we did, yes. Football, we did.
And we canceled the whole game because of,
We did, yep. And then we had a positive case from a athlete who participated in the game, so we had to contact Prescott, and then they had to shut their season down.
so the implications are far-reaching.
Correct, yep. And Prescott had to do that with their volleyball team in September. It's unfortunate.
Right.
So we have a girls basketball player and a boys hockey player that are positive now?
Correct.
And so is the whole team on quarantine?
It is not. We watched the film of the contact days for girls basketball, and we did not deem anybody was a close contact. And then hockey, coach did go through and they did quarantine, I believe it was 3 athletes.
Okay. So boys hockey is quarantined right now?
Just 3 athletes, I believe, total.
3, okay.
3 athletes and their families? Or just,
If they have
Just the
symptoms,
families.
if they show symptoms, then their families have to
Right.
quarantine.
But if it's just a student is on quarantine, the whole family's not on quarantine?
no, not if they're just, right. But if that student ends up positive, then the whole family's on
Correct, yep.
quarantine.
Yep.
So if those 3 kids started their quarantine, say, last week, hockey practice, I think, starts next Monday, would they potentially miss a few days of hockey practice then, right?
Yes.
When
yep.
they're in quarantine? Okay.
Yep,
Well, hockey practice was supposed to start today,
correct, yep.
but
So those
So
athletes
like
would
if
not
they
have
were
been.
physically to show up in person today, those kids who were quarantined would not be at practice. And they wouldn't be at practice for 2 weeks, well, 14 days, I should say.
Yep, okay.
And so now, if one of our student athletes has a sibling at home that's positive, then they also have to quarantine,
Correct.
even though that particular athlete isn't positive. So again, even if the athlete isn't positive, if you have family members that are positive, you're still quarantined.
Correct. Unless I believe you can deem that you're not sharing any spaces and whatnot, but typically it comes up as a surprise and there is close contact. It's complicated.
so I guess, your question of like, what would practices look like to be safe, what would those practices look like? And, I guess the idea of having practices and, you know, I don't know, I'm just trying to think through what would those practices look like and having those small pods and those small groups practicing so that they could get some games in.
So I totally agree with Mr. Durfler. It's a conversation for us to have. The reason I asked it is because I have to go back and communicate with my coaches. And on November 30th, if we come with the plan that we basically had today, there would be some frustration. Now, they would be happy that they were able to incorporate their practices. But if it wasn't going to look any different than today, but I get this is an uneasy time, an uncertain time. We don't know what these numbers are going to do. I can't argue any of that. But that's the question my coaches are going to ask me is, well, I don't know what else we would do differently in a week or 2 weeks. But we can always get better, and I respect that numbers are climbing, and it's an uneasy time, and it's a tough decision to make, and we're keeping kids out of school, and this is a resolution that we agreed on, and I just thought we should have a conversation tonight, and it sounds like we'll move forward on the 30th and have another conversation.
I think, Mr. Fern, I don't want to take away from what you're saying there, but to say that it's an uneasy time and to make this decision because it's an uneasy time, not entering into my framework or how I'm thinking about this, because it's not just, we're not making this decision because it's an uneasy time or we're fearful of what could happen. We're making this decision based on we don't have kids in our schools right now. So, and we don't have kids in our schools because of this model, not because it's an uneasy time. So I want to just not have that out there that you people are fearful and you're making these decisions based out of fear, because that's not where my decision is coming from to say that we can't do this right now. So I just want to make that a point.
Any further comments on winter athletics?
I'd be happy to get something on the agenda when you can look at that tomorrow, and we'll respond of a meeting date.
Well, we can set a meeting date tonight if you want to. I just was looking at my calendar, actually. We don't have to do it now, but after the meeting, we could set that, and it'll be posted as any other meeting would be, and folks can show up and watch that happen.
Can we put a meeting? Does everybody have a calendar?
I would, maybe propose the Monday after.
Monday the 30th?
I mean, the sooner the better, just because.
Monday the 30th.
That
I'm
works.
free. I'm not sure what the rest of you are. I'm not sure what Keith's schedule is.
I think we can all make it a point to be.
Sure.
So Monday the 30th.
And Jeff, of course, he's part of that conversation.
That way, maybe some of the people here tonight can plan accordingly as well. And
Sure thing.
That works for me.
So I think if we want to take action on that, then I think we'll just need a formal motion, and so I'll move that we schedule a meeting for Monday, November 30th at 6:30 p.m.
6:30, whatever you choose, that's fine.
6:30 p.m.
6:30 works,
to revisit the athletics.
and we'll do it right here.
Would there be a second for that?
I mean, is that just to revisit athletics? Or
Nope, that's also the learning
And our
transition.
hybrid model.
That's the learning transition plan as well.
Yep.
I'll second the motion.
Okay. All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? All right, the matter is
Thank you, Mr.
tabled
Byrne.
to November 30th at 6:30.
Okay.
All right, the next informational item, Health Partners COVID-19
Okay.
relief.
Sometimes you get surprised, and the surprise we got was a Health Partners premium credit surprise. If you see on the slide, Health Partners providing a one-time 25% premium credit relief for the effects of COVID. So chalk this up as the one positive from COVID thus far. COVID is losing badly in that regard. So the total savings to the district and to the employees is noted there, some $54,000 to the district and some $7,000 to the employees. The savings for the employees comes in the form of their December 5th paycheck, where they have savings of $54.29 if on a family plan and $24.72 if on a single plan. We know it's not a huge sum of money, but every little bit helps. So that's a nice benefit to us from Health Partners, and that's the value of doing business with them and having done business with them for quite some time. So that's a good thing.
That's very kind and welcome, so thank you to Health Partners.
So that's just an informational item to you. The first reading, sorry, unless you had something further, I'll move on to the next
I was just going to
one.
announce the next one.
Okay.
Go ahead.
The first reading of the visiting teacher homebound student policy. We have occasionally students that physically cannot be here for a variety of reasons, whether they're social, emotional, or physical. We oftentimes have a homebound visiting teacher sent to them. We have a policy that speaks to that, and having looked at board book, the good old days of 1995 when this policy was revised, and then 1990 when it was adopted, a lot's happened in the last 30 years. So it's time for a new policy, and courtesy of Brad Baumgartner, Pupil Services and Administrative Team, we have vetted this to determine not only what the request would be for, but also sort of entering into a contract with the parent and the kid for the services that will be rendered, because it is, after all, a big undertaking to do homebound instruction for the person doing it and for the kid that's receiving it. So this is a re-upped policy, first reading, so you don't need to do anything with it other than if you wanted to have conversation, make comments or questions, this would be the time, and then you'll see it again next month.
It's much more extensive than these 3 sentences from
Yes.
the previous plan.
I'm guessing this is probably
They were not
boilerplate
very
for
verbose
most.
in 1990, I guess.
I was just gonna say, I used to do this, and I remember asking, like, when I was employed to do this, like, what do I do? And nobody could really tell me what I could do, so.
Until now.
This is nice.
So there it is.
All right.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments on the first reading?
No.
All right, then we'll move on to the calendar, 2021 calendar.
Informational item for those who like to watch WCCO on a Sunday morning and watch your name get called across the bottom of the screen or get the all call that school's been canceled. Let's talk about that for a moment. The 2021 calendar is what you see on the screen. We have 2 days built in that would not need to be made up, and a third potentially if we had to. On April 23rd, we would make that a snow day makeup day. And then after that, we spill into June 7th and beyond. And I think I speak confidently on behalf of the administrative team that not much good's going to happen on June 7th. Even after COVID, it's still not going to be a good deal. So what we would do is we would, at that time, start doing virtual days after we had 3 in the bank and we had to start making them up. It could be like a couple years ago where we had 6 or 7, but right now, so far, we're doing okay, but it is only November. So we would make them up after the third one by doing virtual, so we wouldn't be going on June 7th and beyond. So that's an informational item to you, and we've talked about that as a district and administrative team, and people are in agreement that that would be a good way to go. So that's an informational item for you, and that's it.
That's the end of the informational items. So now we will move on to the action items. The first action item, face coverings resolution.
Okay, we are under a state order from the governor, face coverings, through the 21st of November, which by my calculation is Saturday. There are various legal challenges ongoing in regards to that. An oral argument was heard by the Wisconsin Supreme Court today on that topic, and an order could be, or a ruling could be issued by that court at any point in time. I don't know what they will do, but it could happen at any point in time. So we are simply trying to get out in front of that by requiring face masks for all 4K through 12 kids and staff until there's another resolution stating that we wouldn't have that. It's referenced back to policy 443.7, which defines what a face covering should be and must be. And we have done that since September 1. Staff have made it happen. Our kids have been fantastic. And all of the issues we had as concerned in July simply didn't materialize. It's been going great. And we're simply entering into a resolution to continue that for however long we need to do that. When we don't, we can have a party and get rid of our masks.
So my only question is, it says, until a subsequent resolution of the board or an order of a local or state authority eliminates this requirement, would that be an order that says, I guess I'm just wondering, I don't want people to perceive it as saying, well, the state order expired. It eliminated the requirement. Do you know
Right.
what I'm saying?
If the state issued a decision from the state Supreme Court stating get rid of mass, our fallback position is still 612 mass, all students, all staff, all transportation. And then you, as a board, entering into a resolution in July stating 4K through 12, that would not cancel out any of that order. This is simply us covering our bases in case that order goes away. But you must enter into a resolution stating we're not doing it anymore. And if you feel more comfortable getting rid of that clause, we would just get rid of that clause.
Okay. I just wanted to clarify that because.
It's a very good question. So this is an action item, so you would need to take action if you wanted to do this.
Okay. Are there any other questions or discussion?
No, I'll make a motion that we approve the face covering resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the face covering resolution is approved. Okay, the next action item, snow removal bids.
Okay. I know that Tom promised that it wouldn't snow this winter, but it has. And last month, we asked your permission to put out for bids, and we have successfully secured some bids for snow removal on school grounds. And this is the opportunity for you to weigh in as to which bid you would choose, or neither, and we just continue on with the business as usual of doing that ourselves. We have a bid from Gilly Trucking and Excavating, and we have a bid from S&F Excavating and Construction. The bid, what constitutes the bid is similar work, and you'll see that in your board materials. A front end loader with snow pusher per hour, skid steer with snow pusher or snow bucket per hour, and pickup with V-plow per hour. So those two bids are there. From Gilly, the prices are noted, and also from S&F, the prices are noted. So this would be the time for you to let us know which direction you're inclined to go. And Tom, this would be your speaking engagement time if you want to give us a speech.
Do you have a recommendation, Tom?
Tom, come on up to the mic and give us your speech and your recommendation.
What you need to know.
Do you have a recommendation?
The S&F,
They charge by the hour, so given the equipment that each have laid out,
both charge by the hour.
yep, and so given the equipment that each have laid out, who's gonna get it done faster? Since we're paying by the hour.
Probably S&F. I mean, the other one's got a lot of contracts in town. They're gonna be busy with other business in town.
So I hear you saying your recommendation is S&F?
Yes,
Okay?
And is it a little bit less expensive?
yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
It looks like it's, quite a bit, I mean,
Mhm.
$50 per hour less, and I'm guessing this is going to take several hours
Right.
every time it snows, I mean.
And
we heard
remember
last time.
and remember what brought us here. We have 3 of our 4 crew that would be
Yep.
driving bus, and that's an issue. And-
Safety issue.
And further, we don't know our price point, because we could have 18 snow events, we could have 8, we could have 0, we don't know. So it's going to depend on what our winter looks like, but that's always the case.
Is this something that if the kids are not in the building and we're not driving bus, that we could decide, or is it just automatic? We're
I
hiring
think
you?
once we enter into a bid, we want them to do that work. Obviously, we can reappoint Tom and the crew to do that right now, but I think folks that want to contract out work, they want to be able to get started and do that work, or why would they have contracted it out? So I would say we would have them start at the next snow event, whenever we need snow removal.
Yeah, and Tom, you've got plenty to do
And
besides
Yep.
plowing snow, right? And driving bus, even if you're not driving bus, you got plenty to do.
and so with these contracts, right, we would only pay if it snows and if they plow, right?
Correct.
Okay.
do we have like a certain amount, like if it snows?
I'm sure it's like the 2 inches, whatever, they'll come in and plow.
Because they do the surfaces, if you will, the roads and the parking lots, and the custodial staff does sidewalks. And whether that's 18 inches or 2 inches, we do that all the time anyway.
Right.
Steve Norlander in this building was doing it today.
I make a motion that we approve the SNF bid for snow removal.
Second that. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, the snow removal bid for SNF excavating is approved.
All right, thank you.
Thanks, Tom.
Thanks, Tom.
Why does it always look so painful for you? Don't beat Jeff that bad.
All right, the next action item is the appointment of the WASB delegate.
Okay, you'll see on the slide, we have a WASB delegate assembly. It is done virtually. Pre-delegate assembly discussion on Tuesday the 19th and Wednesday the 20th is the delegate assembly. And that's part of the Wisconsin State Education Convention, 100th version, but that's not happening this time around. And typically that person has been Erin Hosking, so you would need to take action to nominate her once again if that's what you so choose to do.
Guess I would ask Erin if she's, you've been the delegate for the past couple of years, and I was the delegate, I think, for 2 or 3 years prior to you. So is that something you're willing to accept, or are you even able to have the time to?
Well, I mean, I think we're all going to just be around. I might have to find a quiet spot if my 5 children are also virtually doing school at home, but it gets a little crowded. We got to find space to all be on.
I think in the past, you've been the delegate, but then I've always been the backup, and I'd be willing to do the backup and mark it
I
up
mean,
on the calendar.
I know, Shar, you haven't been able to attend before. If you are interested in virtually being the delegate, you hear all these resolutions, and sometimes people want to give their opinion on the resolutions before we vote on them. So if you're interested because you have not been able to attend before, but otherwise or Dale. I don't know if you've ever been the delegate.
I would be happy to nominate you.
That was very diplomatic, Dale. Way to exercise your democratic rights.
I know. And I appreciate you thinking of me. And I certainly would love to do that.
I think a second is coming soon.
Yeah. If I was not milking cows, or if it was in between that, but I will second you, and if you decide you get into jam, I will definitely look into that. But I'd be happy to second you if you would be willing to do that.
Sure.
Actually, I'm just going to jump in with 2 pieces of information. I'm quite certain that I read that if you're on the Board of Control for CISA, you cannot be the delegate this year. Have you heard that at all, Erin?
Really?
Didn't we see that?
I did not.
So we might have to check into that. And secondly, they're not
that's a
asking
first.
for an alternate this year. I don't know if it's because it's virtual, but the form that I'm filling out only is asking for 1 name. So just FYI.
Oh,
Okay.
So maybe you want to nominate Erin and have a backup if you are still on the CISA Board of Control, correct?
I am, yes.
Yeah, so if that turns out to be accurate, then maybe the second
Interesting.
person, Shar Glenna, will.
Yes.
Maybe do
or
that
you can
for
ask for Chelsea to be the backup, the alternate. But
Yeah. Well, if you're only putting 1 name, you could put Erin, and then we could just fight it out amongst ourselves.
Yeah. I know, because, in the past, I've been the alternate before, but it never was submitted, and it's not a big deal. I mean, you basically register as Amery, and,
Right,
so.
we used to have to submit
I would
the
just put,
alternate, but
just
they're not
submit
asking
Erin,
this year.
I'll make a motion to submit Erin's name, and then if she can't do it, then we'll figure it out.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I second that.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, Erin is the WASB delegate for the 100th State Convention. And the last item is, personnel.
Okay, well, we have a variety of folks that have been furloughed. You agreed last month to furlough those who would not be working during a period of remote. And in this case, it is bus drivers and paras in some cases. We hope this is short-term, and we have them back in action sooner rather than later. But those letters went out on Friday, and that action needs to be taken by you here this evening. In addition to that, we have 3 retirements. Brenda Kronk, a kindergarten teacher, technically first, second, third, multi-age
Yeah,
Montessori teacher. Bonnie Gehrman, custodian, and Sue Spurl, library media paraeducator. And I have some answers to some questions that I would like to read to you from all 3, and then certainly give anyone that worked with these 3 individuals the opportunity to speak as well, if they felt inclined to do so. So I'm going to speak first on behalf of Bonnie Gehrman, and she wrote the following. I have been employed by the School District of Amery for 31 and a half years. My first 7 years in food service at the high school, then transferred to Lean Food Service, working there for the next 19 years. And lastly, I lateraled into custodial and would retire with 5.5 years in. A memorable time for me was while working breakfast at Lean. One special little girl would cry every morning, wanting her mom, but eventually I was able to comfort her and had her sit next to me near the lunch computer so I could help her open her milk, cereal box, and until after about 3 weeks, she settled in and was sitting with the other kids. We all play a role in the lives of kids. I am grateful for the time I have spent with the many, many students and staff. I am proud to have made lifelong friendships in the process. I look forward to being a full-time grandma. Please appreciate the ABCs I have contributed, and there's ABCs that I'm going to give to all of you at the end of this that Bonnie has contributed. I believe they speak volumes. So congratulations to Bonnie Gehrman. And I have 2 more here, one from Brenda and one from Sue. Brenda's response, first of all, she has completed 27 years in Amery, 28 years total. Enjoyed non-traditional teaching of looping first and second graders, 2 classrooms combined into 1 room with 2 teachers and Montessori. I'm going to be a grandma again and to take care of her grandson. So those are her remarks. And then lastly, Sue Spurl, 28 years in district, 28 years in education. Too many wonderful years of working with fabulous staff all across the district, traveling and spending more time with families. First stop is spending 2 months in Texas. And then she put in typical Sue fashion, wowza. So those are our 3 retirees. I'm not sure if anyone that wanted to speak about them, you can certainly do so, or you can. But those are the 3 retirees.
I just told the staff last night that Brenda had submitted her letter, I think it was October 28th, and I said I was in denial of her leaving because she has really done a lot for the children in our school, starting in Title I, and then she was a moving teacher, and then she did the big bullet of becoming a Montessori teacher, and it's just long, and everybody loves her. And same with Bonnie and Sue. Bonnie is an evening custodian right now. Lovely, lovely lady. She and I are together a lot of nights, and she always is a bright spot in my day. And Sue is amazing in the media center. Her technology support that she does is like, hang on, IT, because Sue's leaving, and we're going to need to do more, because she's been amazing. So, lovely ladies that are hard to replace.
On a selfish note, I'd like to speak about Brenda for a moment, and I have a closer connection to her than I do to the other 2, because my son has been in there for 3 years. When we went to virtual in March, all 3 of my children were very disappointed. He more than most, because he's very socially and emotionally connected to school, anything school. You could tell him we're going to school to stare at the blank wall, and he'd be, let's go to school. He's very into school. He adores Brenda Kronk. And when we had our first Zoom meeting in March, we hadn't seen her for a couple of weeks because we were getting our feet underneath her. She popped up onto the screen. He had never Zoomed before. He reached across the table and he hugged the computer. He was so excited to see her. And I can speak on behalf of him confidently that she will be sorely missed. These women are wonderful for our kids, and I'm happy for them in retirement.
Yeah, I think Mrs. Kronk helped Trevor back when he was a title kid, and she did amazing things for him. And I think sometimes our support staff doesn't get the recognition that they deserve of the lives, how they touch kids. People don't realize that sometimes our janitors do a whole lot more than push the broom around during the day, but we have some really great janitors. My kids have benefited from them, included, that they watch out after our kids after school, they watch out after our kids during the day, and they don't get the recognition they deserve, and they'll be missed, so.
And these are action items and would need to be accepted or rejected.
Can I ask one more question?
Sure.
Sorry, about the furloughs. So certain para-educators, how were they decided which ones were furloughed and which ones are staying?
Good question. We created a staff childcare setting here, so teachers that are coming to school or other staff members, frankly, that come to school during a period of remote that don't have care for their kids, they are bringing their kids here, and paras are caring for those kids at the elementary, intermediate, and middle. And paras that chose not to do that, those were the ones that were furloughed. They were all given the opportunity to help if they wanted to, and day one today, I would say, was a success. And we'll move on to day two tomorrow. We don't hopefully have to do this long, but it's necessary to do now. So that's how they were determined. Good question.
Thanks. I make a motion that we approve the personnel action.
Second.
Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, personnel action is approved. And I don't believe there's a reason to go back into closed session, so I will take a motion to adjourn.
I'll make that motion.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Anyone opposed? Okay, roll call, Aaron?
Yes.
Char?
Yes.
Dale?
Yes.
All right, we're adjourned.